Hello, hello, hello. Jai Jagannath. Welcome to Cowherd Village, your channel for soul adventure. I'm Coach Nathan, your guide for total health empowerment and living life on your own terms. So we got episode 2 of Nourish Your Devotion. Very excited about this. I had a friend, they gave me some feedback about episode 1. It was really nice of him. He said, "Hey, great job, really nice episode." He said, "But I can't see your face." And so he told me I need to get a light. So this episode, you guys are going to be able to see my face. And in that episode, we talked about making progress. So this is part of it. We're making progress. We get a little feedback from our friends, and we make that step towards a better quality, better adventure. So let's get started. We're going to pull out our deck of cards right here. And we'll see what our first quote is in front here. It says right here, that light may be a little bit difficult to see, but it says, "Bring out the best within, not the beast within." Let me repeat that. Bring out the best within, not the beast within. When you guys hear that, what do you guys think about? I think about, have you guys ever had that experience where uh, you're with friends, family, somebody you care about, and you say something, and right after you say it, you're like, "Dang, that was so rude. That was so mean. That's not me. That's not who I want to be. Man, why did I say that?" It just comes from left field. You ever had that experience? And you feel bad about it, and then you got to figure out what you're going to do different. So let's see. Let's dive into Bhagavad Gita. The verse for Bhagavad Gita here is 16:22, where this quote comes from. So let's check it out and see what we got. Okay. Oops. Okay, we got our Bhaktivedanta database. We're going to go to Bhagavad Gita, chapter 16, divine demonic natures. Ooh, huh? There goes 22. The link to this website, by the way, is in the description. Amazing, amazing resource here. Text 22. Coming down here, we got the Sanskrit, and then we'll go to the translation here. Translation purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation is, for 1622, is the man who has escaped these 3 gates of hell. What 3 gates? I think we'll get to it. O son of Kunti performs acts conducive to self-realization, and thus gradually attains the supreme destination. So we have to escape 3 gates of hell so that we can get to self-realization and attain our supreme destination. Okay, let's see in the purport what these 3 gates are. One should be very careful of these 3 enemies to human life: lust, anger, and greed. Ooh, okay. So this is the 3 enemies, or the 3-headed beast, 3-headed monster: lust, anger, and greed. The more a person is freed from lust, anger, and greed, the more his existence becomes pure. Okay, so the man who escapes these 3 gates of hell, lust, anger, and greed, O son of Kunti, performs acts conducive to self-realization, and this gradually attains the supreme destination. So we can see that these 3 gates stop us from self-realization, like I just mentioned. So what is lust, anger, and greed? Well, lust is that desire to be the controller. Often we think of lust in this sexual way, right? But lust is more than just in a sexual way. It's just the desire to dominate, to be in control. And so, matter of fact, have you ever had a boss or a teacher or somebody in your life that they just always are wanting to be in control, and it just, no matter what you do, they want to dominate you and tell you what to do. Sometimes they're called micromanagers, right? So this lust to control material nature, to be dominant. And then when we get a little bit of, when that person gets some taste for what we could call success in dominating or on controlling, then they want more of it, right? And they become greedy. So then that greed says, well, I've got a certain amount of control, I got a certain amount of this and that, but I want more. I want more. I want more, right? And then if anything gets in the way of our lust and greed, then we get angry. So if anybody comes in our life that has another path or another determination and it conflicts with ours, then we get angry, right? Lust, anger, and greed. Then he can follow the rules and regulations enjoyed in the Vedic literature. So if we overcome them, then we can follow the rules and regulations. So one thing about rules and regulations we should think about, sometimes something like this, we have a real distaste for rules and regulations. Why do I have to follow rules and regulations? But if you think about it, in our society, we have rules and regulations so that we can be members of society in a contributing way that goes with the flow of being a good fellow citizen. For instance, we have the roadways, right? And we have rules and regulations about how to be safe and how to work with others that are also on the roadways, right? Speed limits so we don't go too fast. Turn signals so that we can communicate with people about where we're going. So these rules and regulations are meant for the purpose of having good community or society that can work together. So also the Vedic scriptures or the scriptures that connect us with religion, they have rules and regulations. Why? So that we can live a harmonious life, so that we can progress in our life towards higher and higher purposes. Let's continue to read, and we'll touch on that more, I think. By following the regular principles of human life, one gradually raises himself to the platform of spiritual realization. So the Bhagavad Gita is teaching us regular principles, right? These are principles, these are rules and regulations of life that help somebody to gradually raise themselves to a spiritual realization. Wow. If one is so fortunate by such practice to rise to the platform of Krishna consciousness, then his success is guaranteed for him. Okay, so that we can understand right here that religious principles, these regulative principles, they bring us higher and higher to a certain platform. And once we've done enough, once we've gone to a high enough platform, then we can rise to Krishna consciousness. So we can see that there's like a differentiation there in the principles and following them, and a higher than that is Krishna consciousness. Why is that? Well, religious principles are meant to bring about human society to grow, to progress. For instance, in Vedic literature, there's from the bottom of humanity to the top of humanity, there's different ways which somebody can follow rules and regulation to move to the higher next stage of life that's bringing them to a platform of spiritual realization. And if we get high enough through these pious activities, this following religiosity, we get to a point where we become conscious that we should have a relationship with the Supreme Lord, Krishna consciousness. We become conscious that we have a relationship with God. At that time, we start to dive into more than just self-realization. We come to a transcendental platform. So on a spiritual health is to understand that we're a spirit soul, that this body is not who we are, that we are we're a spirit soul, and that we are more than this body. And then we come to transcendental health or transcendental relationship with the Lord. Oh, I have a relationship with the Lord. and we start to cultivate that. And just like any relationship, you have to put time and effort into cultivating a relationship, right? So we become conscious that we can have a relationship with the Supreme Person, and we start putting in time and effort to develop that relationship. In the Vedic literature, the ways of action and reaction are prescribed to enable one to come to the stage of purification. The whole method is based on giving up lust, greed, and anger. Okay, so if we are progressing in pious activity and religiosity by following rules and regulations, what takes us away from it is lust, greed, and anger. This takes us down. So we could say that if we're on the middle platform, the higher platforms take us to a more heavenly existence. And if we go down into anger, lust, and greed, we start going to a hellish life, a hellish existence right here. The man who escaped these 3 gates of hell. So we can see that not only is hell or heaven, in a sense, not just a place that we're going to in our next life, but it can be right here. We can be living in lust, greed, and anger, and it can be creating a hell on earth right here. Or we can be following nice rules and regulations that help us to progress and live a more heavenly existence, you could say. Where were we? Okay, so we'll start right here. In that devotional service, right here, the liberation of the conditioned soul is guaranteed. Okay, let's talk about this, liberation. So in the Bhagavad Gita, it's explained that the conditioned life, or the hellish life, you could say, is that one's happiness is determined by things that are are beyond that person's control. So things that are beyond our control are making us happy or unhappy, or hurting us or making us joyful. So they're not even in our own control, and they're affecting us in these ways. So that's conditioned life. The externals are put on us, and because of those, we feel a certain way. But in liberation, we're unconditioned, meaning that the external factors aren't determining our happiness or our worth. So you could say that internally, we're fixed up in a certain level, determination, or a condition where we're joyful and natural happy, because we're not looking for things externally to validate us. So you could understand that lust, greed, and anger are things that are outside of ourselves, are external, and those external things that we're looking for, that we're trying to get. Remember, I was talking about lust is this desire to control and dominate. I want to dominate financially. I want to dominate other people, right? And we become greedy. I need more. The millionaire gets a million and they want 10 million. They get 10 million when they want 100 million. And that greed, more and more and more, that lust for this control leads to anger. And these are all external factors, right? So let's continue. Therefore, according to the Vedic system, there are instituted the 4 orders of life and the 4 statuses of life, called the caste system and the spiritual order system. So if you go back to our previous episode, we talked about our nature, right? And about how it's healthy to live within your nature and to serve in your nature, and that when you serve in your nature, that when you make mistakes or when things are done imperfectly, you get this opportunity to really grow by learning from your mistakes. But if you're doing other people's duties and you're even doing perfectly, it doesn't lead to growth. Anyways, you can check out that episode where we talk about the 4 varnas. There are different rules and regulations for different castes or divisions of society, and if a person is able to follow them, he will be automatically raised to the highest platform of spiritual realization. Then he can have liberation without a doubt. Okay? So one might ask, well, how do I know the different rules and regulations for different natures, And so that's what the Bhagavad Gita is here for. It's just to teach us about the rules and regulations, the process by which we become liberated. So I think it's important to understand that this Bhagavad Gita, by reading and studying it, it gives us the ability for a few things. These are very important. The first one is the actions that we've done previously that can cause us suffering and pain will no longer come about. When we start studying Bhagavad Gita, our karma, our activities of the past that would eventually come to bite us in the backside, they actually, Krishna is so kind, he either doesn't give us that karma, or he lessens it to a point where we can still move forward. So that's the first thing. By studying Bhagavad Gita, the karma of our past doesn't come into effect, or it's lessened by a great amount. And second thing is that the karma that we got that would cause us pain in our current life comes from lust, greed, and anger. This three-headed beast is the cause for us causing damage, causing chaos, causing problems in others' lives, and causing problems in our life that we have to get that karma, right? So by studying Bhagavad Gita, the lust, greed, and anger diminishes. And so we no longer have the desire to try to dominate, try to control, try to accumulate these external things that seem to never be enough. And so we need more and more and more. And then we get some peace where those that have their own agendas and have their things that they want, we're okay. We don't get angry at them. We're no longer lusty and greedy and determined to get whatever we want in any which way, how to get it. And our anger subsides. So Bhagavad Gita, our past karma gets negated, and the desire for lust, greed, anger, these things that bring us in hell, give us our bad karma, they go away. And then we start to develop our relationship with the Lord. Remember, it was talking about this earlier in this purport right here. In devotional service, the liberation is, it talks about, let me see if I can find it right here. By following the regular principles of human life, one gradually raises himself to a platform of spiritual realization. So by reading Bhagavad Gita, we come to a platform of spiritual realization. Our past karma is not acting on it because because we've gotten contact with the Lord through his Bhagavad Gita. His mercy comes into our life where he says, I'm going to take these things away, or I'm going to lessen them to enough where you can overcome them. The reason why he might not completely take them away and lessen them is because often what those obstacles or those difficulties give us is a remembrance. They help us learn, and so they can be actually very beneficial to us. And so the desire to create more activities that cause bad karma, cause distress, hurt towards others, that desire goes away. And then we can start to focus on our relationship with the Lord in an easy way. That's called Krishna consciousness. So we must become conscious. We must become aware. We should become... So here's something important that I think would be good for us to discuss, is that How, in the moment, can we overcome lust, greed, and anger? Well, often it's, as I mentioned in the beginning, is when I read the card, I was saying that I know in my life sometimes I do these things and I say, where did that come from? Why did I do that? So if we become aware of those things and we can realize that there's these desires for lust, greed, and anger that are coming about, we can notice it, we can be aware of it, we can be conscious of it, and we can have the determination to progress in a way that we do not act like that. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, we can't focus on the fact that we made this mistake and keep on shaming ourselves and beating ourselves up about it. We should be aware of it, but we want to move forward. So what we can do is we can acknowledge it. We can apologize to others about it. We can forgive ourselves for it. And then we can say, you know what? The next time that something like this happens, this is how I'm going to act. This is how I want to act. This is who I should be. This is who I want to be. So let's give a practical example. Okay? So you're having a conversation with your significant other or a really good friend. And for the weekend, you've been planning this awesome weekend. You're going to the movies, you're going out to eat at a special place, and you have the weekend planned. So you're going to surprise your friend or your significant other, and when you tell them about it, oh, I didn't even know that you planned it, they say. I already made plans. And because you've been so determined and so attached to this thing that you want to do, you strike. Well, you didn't even tell me that you were going to do that. Why didn't you let me know? I've spent so much time planning this, and it's all for you, but you don't even care. You just make plans and don't even let me know. And then afterwards you think, man, that was silly. Of course they make plans with other people, I was even making plans with them and didn't tell them. So you might ask for forgiveness, right? You forgive yourself, and you realize that your lust, your desire to control the situation, your wanting to dominate the situation caused you to become angry, and then that person's desires got in your way from what you wanted to do. So you recognize that, and you go, you know what? Next time, you know what? Because I like to surprise people with nice things, I'm not going to give that up. But I'm going to be honest with the situation that when I do make a surprise and that person has already made plans, I'm going to be okay with it. Because I know that one thing is that they're going to appreciate that I even tried to do it, right? And I'm not going to destroy the fact that they appreciate that I did my best to make this plan by getting angry at them. But so next time that happens, I'm going to take a deep breath, just be like, oh, that's too bad. I really was, looking forward to this. And I made so many plans. Maybe we can do it the following week. What do you think? Right? And I said, wow, the following week, you're right. I don't have anything, and I'm so excited. I'm really going to put it on my calendar. We're going to go we're going to have that movie night and that special thing. So now you've taken something that caused a distress in your relationship, a hard thing, and caused even more difficulties. And now you've switched it around where you're leaving that conversation in a positive way. That person is likely to appreciate that you are willing to make this surprise outing with them. You thought of them, and they look forward to, in the following week, do it with you. Okay, so we might have this situation where we have the same situation happen, and again, we get angry, we make the mistake again, and again. We should be conscious of it, acknowledge that we fell short, and we should meditate, you could say, or really be determined that next time that mistake happens, I'm going to act in a positive way. And this is how we can overcome the shortcomings that we have in life. This is one way that we can make a culture of making progress. This is how we can overcome the difficulties that we have of lust, greed, and anger. So many people will talk about habits that they can't overcome. And it's a lot of times, for instance, smoking. People they know that smoking is bad for them, and they still can't overcome it. And it's understandable. We don't have the tools. We're not taught the tools in life to be able to overcome these things that we're used to. There's obviously something that people get when they smoke, right? Some kind of stress relief or this or that. Well, maybe they don't know a different, healthier way to overcome them. So one thing is that we can, to overcome these bad habits, this lust, greed, and anger, is to focus on the things that are positive that we do want, and be aware of them and be conscious of them, and become intelligent about how we're going to do those things. For instance, I could use an example of smoking. I was speaking about it, and we could say, well, if we beat ourselves every time we take a drag or have a smoking, you know what? You're not going to overcome with that. But if you have children or nieces and nephews that you want to be active with, and because you're smoking and it's taking away the health of your life that doesn't allow you to perform and have that fun time with your children or your nieces and nephews or the young people, you might come to a point in life where that becomes so important to you and you're focusing on so important that you're willing to give up the smoking. So this is a really important concept that I'd like you to take away. That when we want to give something up, we can't just get rid of it. We just can't go into a neutral. We have to go to the positive. What's the positive thing that I want or would like to give, especially if you really if you go there about what is it that you can give others that's positive experience, then automatically focusing on that positive experience, you drop the lower thing. So we talked about this three-headed beast, lust, greed, and anger, about how they can control our life in a way that we do things that aren't us, that we don't want to be. And how do we overcome it? Well, we start thinking about these positive things, these healthy things in our life that we want. In our channel here, we talk about total health empowerment. We have 10 aspects of life, right, that we want to really progress in to be the best version of ourselves so that we can give in the most best way, right? So lust, greed, and anger can take from all 10 aspects of our life. One of them, we talked about our social, our friendships, our relationships. Our relationships can be hurt because of lust, greed, and anger. Our physical health, we talked about smoking, right? Our emotional health, right? Because of the control of lust, anger, and greed, they can take our emotions, they can move our emotions into emotional states that we don't want to be in, right? But we need to be aware, we need to be conscious of the fact that these are happening. We need to use our intelligence. But what we need to focus on is about how do we make movement towards the things that we do want. What kind of relationships do I want? What kind of physical health do I want? What kind of emotional health do I want? And so this can be something that's difficult for us to overcome within ourselves. That's why we need a community. This is why we should have community. That's why we should have mentors and coaches, people that can really help us to encourage us. Like my friend was so encouraging. I told you guys about in the beginning. He said, really good video, but I want to see your face. And so he actually encouraged me more by saying, hey, this can help you make better your episode, you know? And so that was my friendship, my social health of encouragement, right? Let's be our best. You can be your best. Let's destroy this, this three-headed beast, and let's do it together. Let's read Bhagavad Gita. Let's have friendships that encourage us to overcome these things. And let's be conscious. Let's be aware of the things that are holding us back. Okay? I want to say thank you all so very much. I wish you guys all the best rest of your day, and we'll see you next episode. Oh, before we leave, I wanted to mention one thing. I created a WhatsApp group for anybody to join where they can ask questions, make comments, to discuss some of these things we talk about at Cowherd Village. Okay, so I'm going to leave a link on that in the comment. I'll comment it, and you guys can join that WhatsApp group. And please come in and ask some questions, make some comments, and then you'll also get to know when our videos are coming up. Oh, don't forget that thing that we do on YouTube. Like, subscribe, and comment.